To begin this story, we need to travel back to the year 1996. The PlayStation was enjoying its unrivaled success in the new polygonal generation of video games, with the Nintendo 64 releasing 2 years behind it this year. The era of the original Sony PlayStation is one that can be defined by experimentation, wild concepts, and a brave step into the third dimension when it came to game design. This was all due to the more developer-friendly practices and tech offered to studios by Sony over Nintendo with its use of CDs and more adaptable architecture in the PlayStation. Simply put, more games were coming to the PlayStation. With that came variety and the defining of genres. In 1995, Capcom released the original Resident Evil, which defined the modern survival horror game genre as most of us know it today. This fresh, innovative, and exciting take was reflecting not just critically but financially as well, and companies took notice. It seemed like everywhere you looked in the PlayStation library there was always a Resident Evil clone. Put up some Countdown Vampires footage.
Quick! Water! Water!
Well, this is an incredible horror show, eh?
Oh, there it is. One of these companies was the legendary publisher Konami, who sought to create their own take on this video game version of a Hollywood zombie flick. Unknowingly, this commission would be the basis for one of the most iconic, experimental, and absolutely gorgeous video games ever made at that point, Silent Hill. As stated, Konami wanted a game that was Hollywood-like, something to draw in the lowest common denominator in terms of how people perceived horror media. This project would be dubbed the Silent Hill Project, and developers from all over Konami Studios were pulled together into the dev team known as Team Silent. When the team were approaching this project, they really didn't know what it conceptually was bringing to the table. Throughout initial conceptualization, developers grew increasingly sore towards the tone and direction Konami was wanting them to lean into. In an interview with the official US PlayStation magazine in 1999, Silent Hill 1's director Keiichiro Toyama explains his views on Resident Evil and how he wanted to distinguish Silent Hill from it. Resident Evil 2, in particular, put aside the horror a bit and went very Hollywood. It focused on the action. It felt more like an action movie than a horror game. We wanted to go back to the roots of what horror is supposed to be about. We want to make you scared on an instinctual level. The team wanted to tap into and explore this primal instinctive fear of the unknown. What it would be like to throw back the veil of blinding fog and darkness to find only what our minds conjure would be there. Thus, they took this direction essentially through an ultimatum to Konami. Either let them do the game they wanted, or they'd walk. Surprisingly, it worked. Team Silent was now operating at their full prowess. Team Silent at this time could be defined by its three figureheads at the studio: the game's director Keiichiro Toyama, the game's character designer and CG production artist Takayoshi Sato, and the composer Akira Yamaoka. These three would lead Team Silent into creating the experimental horror game they were thinking of. The commando main characters of other B-horror stories were replaced with the everyman, and the haunted gothic mansions or dark graveyards were replaced with a small American town drenched in a mysterious and unsettling fog filled with horrors beyond our comprehension. Looking at the characters of Silent Hill, there's a grounded energy to them that allows people experiencing the story to project themselves onto them much easier. Speaking of these characters, their designs, pre-rendered CG models, and animations were all made by just one man. Takayoshi Sato, prior to his work on Silent Hill, wasn't that adept in computer animation and was given a crash course in the software and techniques that were going to be used to create the cutscenes. His work ended up being so impressive that he single-handedly was tasked with producing them. However, it isn't as if help was not offered to them. Sato was determined to craft these to his vision and would spend day and night sleeping under his desk to make sure these were to his specifications. Sato explained in an interview with Gamasutra in 2005 of his time solo animating these scenes. "I didn't go home. For 3 years almost. I lived there. I slept under the desk, and at that midnight time I talked about, after everyone went home, was a real chance for me to work, because I had access to all of the computers in the office. We had 150 computers or something like that, and at the time we were using the Unix operating system, so after everyone's gone home, I could operate all these computers to render my stuff. Yeah, I couldn't go home." Though the process put Sato under a tremendous amount of stress, his efforts paid off and then some. Silent Hill's pre-rendered cutscenes earned Sato numerous awards and were touted as some of the best looking in a video game at that time. It also nabbed him a personal CEO award, which gave him much more creative freedom over his next project, which would inevitably become Silent Hill 2. It's clear that these have aged rather poorly in the pantheon of modern-day computer animation, but considering the circumstances and the limitations of the time, they still look stunning. It could even add to the overall uncanny, otherworldly feel the game puts out as a whole. This carries over into Silent Hill as a game. When the game released in 1999 on the PlayStation, it wasn't seen as just a good Resident Evil clone, but it was praised for its visuals, music, and its brilliant, unique take on the genre that had become almost dominated by action-centric B-horror. There truly is nothing like Silent Hill on the original PlayStation. It's horror that simultaneously disturbs and intrigues you, and invites you to indulge in its atmosphere and to truly immerse yourself in the cold, uneasy feeling of the unknown. Today, however...
Things are getting up. Oh my god, it was him.
Which
It was him that shot him. I don't think she's screwing around. I think that's... What? Coffin.
Did I ask for this?
I don't know. You didn't really ask for anything.
You won't get away with this.
I think she already did. The lady's already out in the open there. You just got shot. How are you still speaking the way you are?
What do you think you could accomplish by coming here?
Apparently more than you.
My, aren't we getting cocky?
Getting cocky as you're sitting on the, Keep this way. What does he got? What's he pulling out?
A glove?
Oh no.
I thought
A glophopotamus.
All I had to do was plant it somewhere. Fine.
Well, he was the mastermind this entire time.
You all well, it kept you busy.
That's great. Well, what is it that he actually has? I can't even see it. So, oh no, that's Henny. Oh, he's got the Henny.
Stop it!
He's got the Henny. Harry, get out of there. You don't know what that does. He's doing it. Oh my god, it's in full stride. Look at it go. Oh my god. Oh my god. There it goes.
Yeah, it's obvious this isn't a looker. The flaws of the PS1 can be displayed in full force at moments within Silent Hill 1. Everything from texture warping, poor frame rate, muddy textures, it's all here in its janky glory. Today, this game probably isn't going to engross the everyday consumer in its world. There's a lot to excuse and let slide. However, if you're a connoisseur, like moi, there's nothing but raw appreciation for this game for what it managed to accomplish in this era, and the impact it had on the industry and the genre of horror in general as a whole. What surprised me about the original Silent Hill is how much the game really wants you to take in this oddly comforting feeling of melancholy isolation at points. This is something the future games improve on a lot, and I would even argue it's probably one of the greatest strengths in the future. In my playthrough for this video, I came in with the mindset of this automatically being inferior to the second game in mind. Silent Hill 2 is arguably one of the most perfect pieces of horror fiction and video game storytelling ever produced. It's why it isn't the subject of today's piece. I honestly don't think I could do it justice quite yet, which is why I was so surprised when I was enjoying myself with a lot of what this game had to offer. The emotions this game can convey with its atmosphere is insanely impressive. I think I could chalk that up to the consistently amazing score by Akira Yamaoka, a veteran stylistic influence for the series, and his work is no different here. Combining this game's aesthetics and music can feel like an oddly comforting sadness, or a panic-fueled hellish pursuit. Story-wise, it's also certainly ambitious for the time. I will say it's not quite my cup of tea when it comes to how I like my horror, but it's definitely saying and showing a lot more than games were willing to delve into at the time. It's a pretty basic evil cult story, but the presentation really lifts it from falling through the cracks of generic mediocrity, and there is one truly wonderful accolade I will give it. Its handling of the character of Lisa Garland. In the Hell World Hospital portion, you meet a nurse who seems to have fallen unconscious and ended up in the hellscape you're exploring, who introduces herself as Lisa Garland. Later in the game, you find hints and clues in various notes and logs left behind by the town's former inhabitants, mentioning how Lisa Garland was the main caretaker for the child Alessa Gillespie, a child with psychic powers that a cult in the town was trying to use to resurrect a dark, demonic god. There's multiple accounts of the horrifying effects Alessa's influence had on Lisa as she slowly but surely killed her before we even arrived at the town.
Still has an unusually high fever. Eyes don't open. Getting a pulse, but just barely breathing. Her skin is all charred. Even when I change the bandages, the blood and pus just start oozing through. Why? What is keeping that child alive? I can't stand it any longer. I won't tell a soul. Promise. So please.
Apexing at the realization from Lisa herself that she too was a monster roaming the town, and what follows is something I can only describe as the visual representation of an ego death of someone recognizing their own inhumanity.
Harry?
Lisa, what's the matter with you?
I get it now. Why I'm still alive even though everyone else is dead. I'm not the only one who's still walking around. I'm the same as them. I just hadn't noticed it before.
Lisa.
Stay by me, Harry. Please. I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
Lisa.
To this day, that scene still manages to make me feel such grief and sadness. It chokes me up even. These themes of roaming through emotions themselves are translated well into Silent Hill 1's unique blend of gameplay and exploration. I do think it's a rough start in terms of the execution and overall design of the game, but just trust me when I say that the series got so much better, as well as inspired so much better. Silent Hill 1's impact on the industry and the horror genre cannot be understated. I think it could be credited in some ways as influencing more nuanced horror storytelling and media, and allowing subtle atmosphere to take precedence over in-your-face blood and gore. While B-horror schlock always has its place in entertainment and is valid in its own right, when horror is done with the nuance, care, and attention to detail, the themes it deals with demand to be taken seriously by an audience, it can be some of the most smart and resonating pieces of art imaginable, creating some of the smartest stories ever put to paper or screen that expose the personal tragedies that inevitably come with this scary world of ours, and transforming it into beautiful, relatable art. And while Silent Hill 1 doesn't do this a whole lot, it was certainly one of the biggest stepping stones the industry needed to produce some of the most beautiful horror fiction ever crafted, even within the confines of the town of Silent Hill itself, all through the strengths of a dev team truly passionate about the emotions they were trying to convey. Silent Hill is genuinely perfect horror, and I hope to cover the series more in the future. I'm John Fupasaiyan. Thank you for tuning in today.